Sokoromokotira karakiyaraka. Akrapoyaraka.
Hello and welcome to Living Transmissions, the series where I share the living transmission that is my life with the intention of inspiring and delighting you to know that the same synchronicities, magic, and miracles that I experience in my life every day are also available for you. In this second episode, we're going to continue with the story of the hero twins, which inspired me to begin this transmission in the first place. So, in case you missed it, I'll be linking the first episode below. I won't be going back over the hero twin story in full, but we did leave a little cliffhanger as I was approaching the House of the Jaguar from part one, and have an absolutely incredible and mind-blowing opportunity to finish the story through the House of the Bats. And no matter how many times I experience these synchronicities, the magic and the miracles that is my life, it never ceases to amaze me and delight me in awe with how truly magical it really is. So, before we get started in the journey, I would love to open us up through just a moment of presence, connecting with the breath, feeling the inhale and the exhale as I connect into my channel to open this living transmission episode today. I'll be sharing some light language in this opening. For those who aren't familiar, I share a little bit more about this in episode one. It is a vibrational transmission intended to go straight into the physical body, speaking from my heart straight to yours. So sometimes there's an English translation that wants to come through, and sometimes it's purely in the vibration of sound or movement. I have no plans or agenda for what's going to come through, and so I am in the state of allowing with the intention that we anchor in the energies for the highest good of all, that these frequencies meet you with where you're at today, supporting you with wherever you're at, whenever you're tuning in, knowing that this transmission transcends any illusion of time and space to bring us here into the now moment. Ai nakashunya kantinya maka. Aiki nyashi nyakunya. Aitiki ama shukuntiki anti nyamukushti. Ainyara nyoku ya kantiki nyamaku. Hello, dear ones. We are so pleased and delighted to be with you here today in this now moment. Ayanakushti nyamakati nyashaka. Indeed, this now moment is truly the only moment that exists. Anti ki yamaka shukunti nyamaka. And even within that now moment, there is also the element of illusion. Ayanaka shinyamakati nyaka. As you, the observer, is here witnessing, Anyakushtikinyamaka, perhaps tapping into the physical body, feeling this transmission, Aradukushtikinyamaka, breathing into the heart, Anyakashikiamaka, grounding into the earth, Anyakashinyamaka, Nyakunyakati, collapsing the wave into the particle unyakashi nyakanti antiki nyamukushtikiamaka, time and time again. Ashi nyakanti nyamukushtikia. This element of time, antikiamakushtikiamaka, transmitting through the one who once tapped into the information of herself as a timekeeper. Anya kushtiki niamakashu, something she continues to explore and expand into. Anya kashi niamaka, as she creates and connects meaning in this now dimension for what that is meant to bring forth. Anya shuku niamakunya kanti shia atiki niamaku. And we will ask you if you were to tap into this concept of a timekeeper, Anya kushtiki niakantu niamaka, what does that mean for you? Antiki nyamaku shtiki, and try, if you will, anyamaku, to play with us now. Aranyaka shukunti, rather than the thoughts coming from the mind as to what this could mean. Ashukuntiki nyamaka, see if you're able to tap into the body and allow the answer to come from within. Ashukuntiki nyamakantara shukuntiki nyaku. Atiki amakunya. Ashiki antukunya makantiki nyamaka. Receive this vibration as an activation. Anyamakushtiki nyamakara shakanta. For any remembering. Ashukutikia or expansion. Akashukutikia that your soul wishes to experience now. Antiki nyamakushti antukunya makashikia. Tuku ratika. Antikiamakushti, Antikianashi Antikianaka, Antiki Ashunyamanti Asha, Ankantoro Unya Kantikia, Antiki Amakushtikinya Kantiniana, Ayanakashukuntiki Amakashia, Anyakunya Kashi Antiki Amakarashiana. Rather than any logic or previously known information that wants to come through at this time through the one channeling now. Anya kushtiki nyamaka. We wish to leave you with this light language transmission. Antukunyamaka shikianaka. So that the own response from inside of yourself steps forth. Anya kashinya makunya kantinya. Indeed, this is what humanity is being called to more powerfully step into. Anya kushtiki nyamakanyaki, the remembering of all that they are. Ukunya kashiki, and the remembering and the knowing that all they wish to be can be theirs. Anya kushtiki nyamakashi anyaku. It's only the limiting beliefs in your mind that keep you from this. Anyakushtiki nyamakaranya. The invitation is to go into the shadows, into the depths of where these beliefs reside. Anakushtiki nyamaka. It's not as important to know how they started, ukunyamakashi nyakanti, as it is to connect with the parts of you that still hold on to these beliefs. Anya kushtiki nyamakaranya. Indeed, towards the end of this transmission, we will be looping back to this topic, antukunyamaka, as this discussion of release is of the utmost importance. Antikinyamakushtiki nyamakaranya kanti. You have been and you will continue to be called into releasing more and more of the density that no longer serves. Ashakantini amakunyakashi, antikini amaka, a release of these outdated systems and structures that are no longer serving the greater good for humanity. Ashakantukunya makashi a, antikini amakushtikini amanyaka. Indeed, it is true, these systems and structures that no longer serve will simply cease to exist. Anyakushtiki nyamaka nyakushtikia. Because the vibration that you have reached within humanity has made it so. Antikinya maka pashukunya ka. These lower vibrations will no longer be able to continue. Antara shunya maka shunya kantinya kanta. And while the appearance may suggest otherwise, antikinya makushtikinya ma, we encourage you to connect into your heart, antikinya maka, into your solar plexus, antikinya mukushtiki, into the truth that you feel within. Ashakuntinya maka, knowing through resonance. Ashakanti, this feels true in my body. Anya kushtikinya, allowing yourself to leave whatever does not feel in resonance or alignment with your truth. Anya kashukuntikinya maka, knowing another's truth does not need to be your truth. Anya kushtikinya maka, asking for the remembering. Ashakontunya makashinya maka, that the sovereignty of your truth is yours and yours alone. Anya makushtikinya maka, encouraging you to never give up your power. Antikinya makashunya kanta, antiki, to allow others to project their beliefs onto you. Ashantukunya makashi. We will be going into a ceremony of release in this transmission. Antikinya makashinya. Knowing if you're tuned in now, this is exactly where you're meant to be. Antikinya makushtinyana. Antikinya makashinya muku. Antinya kantarashinyana. Anyakunya kanti. Taking a moment to breathe into the body, feeling the body. Antikinya makushtikinya kantara. We are grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. Antikinya maka, and we look forward to the opportunity again. Antikinya shankantara. For now we are complete. Ushta, ushta, ushta. Mm. Mm. Taking a moment for me to come back into my body. That was, I want to say unexpected. And it's also channeling that I've been tapping into for quite some time now. For me, I have noticed that light language has supported me in so many ways, but particularly when channeling wants to come through, it's allowing me to ground into the body, into the frequencies, into the vibration, and getting out of my mind, so that I can bring that through. And so, yeah, like I said in the opening, sometimes there's an English transmission. Um, Oftentimes, I really love not bringing that through, even if I hear it, um, because I really love when people can tap in telepathically and to whatever message it is for them. For me, like language is very multidimensional, and the reason why we have it is so that we can bypass the logical mind, the meaning that the mind wants to connect through the words and the sentences that we form, um, to really allow that meaning and that activation or clearing or whatever the intention is to come from within. So, what a beautiful setup for part two of the Hero Twins story. I do plan to do a little clearing ceremony. So, grateful for the confirmation in the channel that came through. And today I chose to grab my cherry blossom crystal. This is a dragon head that I picked up at a shop in Mount Shasta that travels the world with me. And yeah, I'm grateful for that connection to this crystal being. So thank you. Okay, so House of the Jaguar. Just a quick little update for those who may not have tuned into episode 1 or want a quick refresher. I travel the world for the past 20 years. I've been a global nomad. For the past 16, I've been traveling full time. And for about the last 6, I've really been going within, connecting more deeply spiritually, mindfully, consciously, intentionally as I travel. And since my initiatic journey to Egypt in 2022, whole new world of mysticism and alchemy and amazing opportunities have opened up for me. And so that is what leads us here today. I was in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala when I started this series. And now this hero has returned to her birthplace of Omaha, Nebraska, to visit my father, who still lives here. Um, this is my first time being back in the United States since last November of 2025. So it is quite an interesting experience for me to come back with this new iteration of me. I'm sure most of you have heard of the hero journey. So I like to think of it as the heroine's journey in my case. Um, and yeah, this is also very new. I just arrived 4 days ago, so still grounding in and feeling into the new me. Um, and really, honestly, one of the reasons I started this transmission series is so that I could share vulnerably and transparently with what's going on a more frequent basis because there is always so much going on in my life. The old story that I found myself in was that so much is going on. I don't know how to share this, and I don't know how to, go from one experience to the next. If I go a few days without sharing, it feels like a whole new life has opened up for me. So, um, and that said, one of the other old stories that I used to tell myself that had kept me from being at this point where I am today was that, I wasn't at the level of the mentors who I love to tune into. Most often, Sarah Landon, Kelly Kolodny, Lee Harris, Sheila Gillette, who have all been doing this for decades. And recognizing that I need to be compassionate and gentle with myself. And Sarah often mentions, early in her channeling career, she felt very cringe in watching and she made it a point to keep up her oldest videos to just allow herself to witness how far she's come. And Lee Harris has a background in broadcasting. So, of course, his studio and the way that he brings his transmissions through with a staff is going to be very polished at this point because he has a career in doing it. And, my career is in tech. So, I do pride myself in the ways that I am tech savvy. And I tried a new streaming software for this particular episode. And I ran into hurdles getting it started, and I allowed myself to really be okay with the fact that I didn't start at the time that I wanted to start this, and know that, I didn't need to have it planned and rehearsed before I started. And that was another thing for me, really wanting to be able to share from my heart, share what wants to come through in the moment. And yeah, I mean, I did a little bit of prep. But I also love the magic of what wants to come through in the now moment. And it's one of the things that I love most about channeling and especially tapping into light language because I truly don't know what wants to come through. And when I travel around the world, oftentimes I'm heading to different sacred sites and new dialects or new vibrations will come through me. And so I love to be in the state of allowing to really allow that to come through in whichever way it wants to come through. Sometimes I'll be walking down a street in a city and light language is coming through my hands, almost like I'm doing some sort of cosmic surgery or rewiring or clearing. There's different vibrations or sensations that might come through. Oftentimes, I know I don't actually even need to know because my intention is always for the greatest good of all. And I trust that my guides are there supporting me and that what's coming through is meant to come through. And so, yeah, that brings me back into the state of allowing and surrender and trust. that is so key to how I live my life now, and something that I wish to continue to share with you throughout this series of living transmissions. So, all right, back to the house of the Jaguar. When I was in Lake Atitlan, there was an opportunity to go to Colombia with Matthias Di Stefano, who I travel with a lot. You saw some photos of that in the intro, because every equinox and solstice, he's doing a gathering, an event, and now trips that are doing really powerful activation at energetic nodes all across the planet. And so I was with him in the first one in Chichen Itza last year for the spring or March equinox. And then I was with him in the final one of 2025 in Argentina on the December solstice. So when the opportunity to go to Peru came about, I was already in Peru at the time. I had done a side trip to Egypt with him, as one, just does a side trip to Egypt. And when I landed back in Peru, I knew I was meant to go on this trip. And oftentimes I prefer and have learned how to read the signals from my guides from the universe to show me which way to go. And when it came to the trip in Colombia that they were doing for the summer solstice, I didn't feel a resonance with it. It didn't feel like it was meant for me to go. And so I made the decision that I would do something else, not knowing what that would be. The following day, I get an email in my inbox from an organization called Anawa, which at the time I had no idea how I had ever heard of this organization, let alone signed up for their newsletter. And even the fact that I read the newsletter, I mean, I very rarely open email newsletters, but I think it said something maybe about Guatemala or the solstice. So that caught my eye. And sure enough, for the summer solstice, they were doing a 5-day retreat with two Mayan elders, Tat Mario and Nana Amelia. Um, and we would be doing fire ceremonies for 5 days in a row. And this particular summer solstice, for us in the Northern Hemisphere, I should say June solstice, for those that might be tuning in the Southern Hemisphere, um, the Mayan calendar just so happened to end on the day of the solstice. And the following day was the beginning of the new Mayan calendar year, which is incredibly rare. I mean, there's 260 days in the Mayan calendar. So you can imagine when you're mapping that in the Gregorian timelines, it, it's not that common that it's going to align with the solstice. So I knew this was super powerful and important. And I had wanted to go to the area of Tikal to go to the pyramids. So it was just an immediate yes for me. I knew it was meant to be. And the more that I then learned about the Anawa organization, and their mission to revitalize and to preserve cultural heritage, um, and the sacred lands in partnership with the indigenous communities, um, I knew like this is perfectly aligned with my mission, my values, what's important to me. And, anytime that I can connect with indigenous leaders, learning their wisdom, sitting in their ceremonies and learning from their rituals, it is always a super powerful experience. And so, yeah, this was an immediate book for me. And it was absolutely phenomenal. And so, where I had left off in the first episode was the hero twins going through the house of the Jaguar. And I didn't know this at the time that I had discovered this story and that the scorpions had visited me to bring me all of these incredible parallels to my life. That the Tikal pyramid is actually known as the Pyramid of the Jaguar. And so there is a site just north of Tikal Pyramid called Washakhtun. You actually drive through the Tikal grounds to get to this place. And because it's not the best road and about a 45-minute drive north of Tikal, not very many people go. But this particular sacred site was specifically built for the solstice. And I have a couple pictures I can bring up here in a little bit. But basically, they have the structures that align with the June solstice and the December solstice with the equinox in the middle. So when we are experiencing the solstice, for those who might not be familiar, the sun is rising at a particular point in the horizon. And so in ancient cultures, we were mapping this because it was very important for their agricultural seasons and their connection to the stars. I mean, I think it goes way more in depth in agriculture, but that's most often how we hear it discussed. Um, and so these structures, were perfectly aligned. And then that's how they would track the days and the seasons. And that's one of the gifts that Matthias has brought me in the last couple of years since connecting with him on these powerful portal days, because it's truly what they are, a turning of the seasons, right? A way to mark time. Mm, He's reminding us how important it is to follow that and reconnect with galactic time, because we have versions of timelines that we have been following that have kept us in loops that we don't wish to be in, um, that just continue to perpetuate, right? And a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it also has to do with the Gregorian calendar, which most of the world follows right now. So, um, all of this to say that the opportunity to be at this site on this day doing a Mayan fire ceremony with an indigenous elder of the region was truly an honor for me to be able to be uh, participating in. Not only that, Top Mario's wife, Nana Amelia, um, is part of the Council of Elders in the country of Guatemala, who worked very hard to be able to make it legal for them to do ceremony at these sites again. Because up until the late 90s, it wasn't allowed. They couldn't do these fire ceremonies and tap back into the traditions and the rituals and that their culture had honored and celebrated for thousands and thousands of years. And there's still countries to this day where that's not possible. I walked in with a stick of incense burning at Chichen Itza, um, and I was told to put it out. And I get it. And I know that we are moving more into the expansion. I mean, we also see this in Egypt really commonly, but we also see both sides of it in Egypt. Sometimes you're allowed to close your eyes and connect in, and sometimes you're not. And the way that I have found the most success with that is to introduce myself when I come to these sacred sites. Matthias taught us to introduce ourselves with our full name, our birthplace, our birth date, and our parents' names. So I'll say, hello, my name is Maria Ann Scarpello, born February 21st, 1983, in Omaha, Nebraska, to parents Rick Scarpello and Jane Byers Scarpello. I thank you for this opportunity to visit this site today, and I ask for your permission, for the permission of the ancestral guardians, the spirit guardians, the animal guardians, to connect with this site today. Thank you for this opportunity. And then I'll leave an offering. Matthias suggests that we also leave an offering of our DNA. So whether that's a strand of hair or saliva is often how I will do it. And I always say, with respect, I'm sharing my DNA with the land now. So it's not just me spitting kind of can be taken as a different vibration. And I know that the spirits know, but I think it makes me feel better to introduce that this is what I'm now doing. And also, I bring my moon blood to these sites, which I collect. And sometimes I'm guided to share it, and sometimes I'm not. And I follow that. So it's not like I go with the intention of I'm going to share it here. I go with the intention of I have it. And if it seems like I'm meant to share my moon blood with the land, I do. We actually had a really fascinating conversation with Matthias about this in Egypt. And one of the things that I had shared that was coming up that other women were sharing as well, of the importance of sharing our moon blood with the land, because it is a ritual that we have lost over the years in ways that we have tried to hide, or shame or dispose of our moon blood, which a lot now is, getting soaked up in different sanitary products and then thrown into a landfill. And there's a lot of codes in that blood. And with the separation of that ritual for women, the land has needed some blood, is what Matthias has basically said. And I said, the masculine is what has been shedding that blood throughout centuries and thousands of years of war. And so perhaps there's an opportunity for women to step more boldly in their power, in their acceptance of their own bleed, which can be a process for many women. I'm not excluded from that. I haven't always done this. This is a new practice that has come to me in recent years. And so I did this after the first day's ceremony, but let me back up a bit in terms of the solstice. I'll show some pictures actually because I have them. This is the beautiful little heart that El Fuego left me as I was preparing my departure from Lake Etitlán, Guatemala, to head north up into the Tikal area. And so that's not what I wanted to play. Hang on. Still learning this new software. Here we go. So I just so happened to find a restaurant as I was making my way to Tikal called Chibalba, which is the underworld of the Hero Twins story. So couldn't pass up the opportunity for this little photo op. And here is the Jaguar Pyramid of Washaktun. Now I'm calling it that. I'm not sure if that's the actual name, but it's kind of hard to tell in this photo, perhaps because time and weather has degraded. But these are faces of jaguars along the staircase going up to this particular step pyramid. And so we had the opportunity to set up this fire ceremony. If you ever have an opportunity to sit in a fire ceremony, I highly recommend it. It is so incredibly powerful, and I feel so blessed and grateful for the opportunity to experience powerful ceremonies like this, um, even if I haven't done any plant medicine. It's still powerful. It's still really powerful. And so I see in the chat here, thanks, Di. It doesn't look like the photos were flipping through as I was on my end, so I'll have to figure that out and sort that out later. Um, but maybe in a post edit, I can add them somehow into YouTube. Um, that's a bummer. Sorry about that. Um, but anyway, the ceremony for me was an introduction. It was the first time I had sat in a Mayan fire ceremony, and the way that these particular ones were conducted was very connected to the Mayan calendar. So, in the fire, they usually honor the kin, which is the way that they describe the day of the Mayans that we're on. And so, in this particular day, because it was the last day of the Mayan calendar, it was known as the Tzizi, and I'm sorry if I'm not going to pronounce some of these correctly. I haven't been trained yet into the Mayan calendar, but something I definitely feel could be a possibility in my future. But the theme of this day has to do, with faith in the destination. It can also have to do with final judgment. There's themes of death and rebirth for the following day. So basically, this opened up, what we were going to be journeying through for the following 4 days. So the next day we went to Tikal, and the first day of the Mayan calendar is known as the Bats Day, and it's not like bats the animal; it's like bat B apostrophe ATZ. But there's a really funny connection that we'll get into towards the end of this retreat that ties back into the House of Bats for me personally. But in context of the Mayan calendar, it is a day of initiation. It's celebration of creation. It's like I said, the new year, the new ceremonial cycle. And for the Mayan tradition, this is a sacred day of initiation for those who have been studying the Mayan calendar. And so we had the opportunity to be invited into Nana Amelia's group, who she has been training. She works specifically with Mayan people who are wanting to be you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Initiated into the Mayan ceremonies. So it was beautiful, to see the way that the women and the men came together, each adding their own elements to the fire. Every element that you add into the fire before you start it, there's a very beautiful process that takes place, and it's all symbolic. You're representing the four directions, the sky, Father Sky, Mother Earth, And then they're using things like copal, Palo Santo, fire stick, and a lot of tobacco. So one thing to know about the Guatemalan people, they roll tobacco in these giant cigar like sacred tobacco, and they can read the smoke. They can read the way that the tobacco burns. So it's really fascinating to observe and to be a part of. Tobacco is a great clearing medicine. I'm not fully connected to the plant of tobacco, so I can't speak to it in that, but I can tell you what I experienced through it, and I really appreciated being able to see the ways that they were connecting with the plant. My plant mentor, who I studied with years ago, had once told me that tobacco is one of the indigenous plants to Earth, and so it can be incredibly grounding and supportive, particularly, say, maybe in medicine ceremonies where we're having, other dimensional experiences and sometimes require coming back into the body or settling back into the earth, connecting back into the earth, and tobacco can be really great for that. So this was a beautiful day. I'm actually really sad that I don't know how to share in the keynote that I set up where it could be a different photo. Let me see if I can figure this out quickly on the fly. Um, I want to change this. All right, there we go. It worked. Okay, so this is the site Washaktun where we had the first fire ceremony. And you can see in the distance on the hill behind the structures that are covering. They have like all of these different ancient stones that unfortunately were made of limestone and so have largely washed away that you can't fully see. Um, and in fact, let me see if it's kind of cut off. Thanks, Di, for tuning in here with me in the chat to let me know what you're seeing. Um, can you see the full photo of with the fire? She says yes. Okay, great. So Um, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but on the hill is where those structures align with the solstice suns and the equinox in the middle. So this is Top Mario, who led the first day fire ceremony. We were joined the second day with Nana Amelia, his wife. Again, another picture of the pyramid on this site. And here was the initiation day, the following day at Tikal. And so you can see here they put in the fire, that's the shape of the Mayan kin for bats. And here is Non Amelia and Mario's daughter, who's gathering the different flowers that she's going to add. Oh, good. Maybe you can also hear the video. I was hoping this might play. And one thing I will say, I love the language of the Mayan people. There's a few different versions of the Mayan language depending on the region that you're from. But to me, it sounds just like light language. So it was a really joy to be able to experience that for me as well. And then throughout the ceremony, we're handed different things like candles that we then are throwing into the ceremony. And I'm going to go ahead and switch back to me here for a little bit before I keep going on to the next. And so to be able to be a part of that, again, I just feel so incredibly grateful. And more opens up for me in the story of the House of the Jaguar that I will get to later on. But the following day, so the second day of the Mayan calendar, we were staying at a really beautiful property along Lake Peten, which is just about 45 minutes south of Tikal. And we did a water ceremony, which for me is incredibly important. I'm very connected to water, and I was able to bring the waters of the world that I have connected along my travels to this ceremony to do the offering and get it to the lake, which I also share with the land everywhere I go as well. And this day is the day of I think is how you say it, or she. No, that's 2 days from now. And so this is about the path of life. And for me, the path of life definitely includes water. And so it was just a really perfect alignment. We also had an opportunity to share what has been coming up for us through the ceremonies. And we had an opportunity to hear a short little description of each of our Mayan cosmologies. So, depending on the day that you were born, you'll have a different Mayan kin. And mine just happens to be cat, not like a cat meow, but it's K apostrophe A T. It actually doesn't have anything to do with the animal cat and more with the spider. And so part of my design through my cosmology has to do with the weaver and the ways that I weave my web or cast a net is another symbology. And so really brought into my awareness the importance of working with the net because as we know, a net can be very useful, but it can also trap things, it can collect things, especially unconsciously. And so people that have my design with this Mayan kin can sometimes find themselves collecting energies that are not theirs. And that was something that came through in a reading that I was able to have with Nana Amelia, which was absolutely phenomenal that there was more that I was collecting energetically within my body than I was conscious of. And so a lot of this sometimes feels a little too new for me to be sharing because I'm still very much integrating all of this, but it's also part of me getting out of my comfort zone to share this and be okay with me sharing with wherever I'm at. So I appreciate y'all tuning in and coming with me on this journey. And so the following day after the water ceremony, we had another fire ceremony at another sacred site called Yasha. And this site is massive. It's about an hour east of Tikal, or Lake Peten, I should say, where we were. And this day was the day of Aj. Sorry, I don't fully know the pronunciation. But the theme of this day is all about harmony in the community. It's a day that represents the home, the gathering, the hearth is another way that that's described. And this day was a challenging day for me because for anybody that has an opportunity to sit in ceremony or even in a medicine ceremony, there's things that are going to come up. It's why you're there, especially with fire, right? It's quick, it's wanting to burn things away, it's wanting to bring things into the light. And so I've been on a journey having to connect with parts of myself who felt like she was in control um, with the ways that she nourished her body and kept her body healthy. And when I was in Lake Atitlan, it was revealed that there are some dietary changes that are recommended that I make as I bring my body into greater alignment with where it wishes to be, which is feeling good and full of energy. And um, I've lived the past decade of my life primarily eating plant-based, so there's already a little bit to navigate, especially when you're traveling abroad, especially in regions where it's not as common to have the primary food on your plate be a vegetable. And so, in addition to that, I'm now meant to be removing any kind of carbs or sugars for the time being. And so, there's a part of me that gets really triggered when food isn't right or can't be her way, or if there's a challenge with that. And a lot of emotion was coming up with me in that morning. And I want to honor myself in that process because, present day self knows um, there's a different version of this story that isn't as emotional, but the honoring comes in the parts of me that feel this way and that really want to feel held in this. And so it's my responsibility to hold myself through this and know that I have created support systems and structures in place and have practices that can allow myself to move through it. And if I need additional support, it always is there for me. And that's definitely been what's transpired for me in the last couple of weeks as well. And so this day, I have actually, let me go back to the photos. This was the water ceremony. That's Nana Amelia and Mario. Um, so this is the site, and there had been something after the fire ceremony that really kind of activated me. So someone caught a picture of me kind of just like sitting with myself, doing my own version of integration, which was probably in the form of sulking. Um, so this was a moment that I was having that someone captured for me, probably not even knowing that I was having a moment. Um, but as all things emotional, this too had passed, and I did find myself in a better place after this. Um, and then the fifth and final day of ceremony, which somehow completely missed my radar when I read about the retreat, was actually held in the entrance of a cave. And this is a sacred cave of the feathered serpent. So very powerful, very um, spiritually like potent. And what does this bring us to? The House of the Bats. Now, I I didn't even think about this when I went into the cave. I didn't even think about this when I saw the bats flying around the cave. It wasn't until later that day when I was sharing with my roommate that it clicked for me that, oh my God, I literally just went through the House of Bats. But in the story, if you remember from episode one, in the House of the Bats, one of the twin boys is decapitated. So he dies, and then his brother brings him back to life through the magic that they do. Uh, but I was thinking prior to going into this, knowing that the House of Bats has to be arriving for me somehow, that I I was thinking maybe I need to die. Like I wasn't really exactly sure what was in store for me, but I was prepared, to jump into the fire as, one of the twins both did at the end of the story, in order to sacrifice themselves. And I think that's, now that I'm recalling this story to you, what was going on. And you may recall, if you are like really tuned in and remember what I said in the last episode, before I started this retreat, this trip, I had pulled this card, this Isis card, which says proper burial for freedom, sacrifice to Osiris, Lord of the Dead. And again, I hadn't connected the fact when I drew this card, I was like, whoa, this is an interesting connection with the House of the Bats, which is all about death and resurrection. And now Osiris is here supporting me through this. So I'm like, okay, clearly something needs to burn away. And I'm just going to read a little bit. By the way, this deck is the Isis deck. Which way am I going? This way. By Elena Fairchild. It is super powerful. I love this deck. It's one of two that I travel with. The other one is the Ascended Masters deck. And it's quite large for a nomad to travel. It has to be important if you're going to carry it with you. And this has just been so supportive. So I'm glad that I do. But it says, in order for life to flow and express itself, that which belongs to the world of death must be released. There is nothing to be gained and everything to be lost by trying to hold on to that which no longer serves us, which is better left to die. Though it takes great spiritual courage and trust to allow this to happen. Osiris, Lord of the Dead, guides you now to release that which no longer needs to be a part of your life so that you may be free. And so, as a part of these fire ceremonies, they're leading us and guiding us to put into the fire that which we wish to release, to put into the fire the prayers that we have. And then as we place the items into the fire and it goes up into the smoke, it's connecting that into the spiritual ethers, to the ancestors, to our guides who are supporting us in the creation of this happening. So this absolutely aligned with a lot of what I was moving through. And one of the things that was revealed in the reading that I had with Non Amelia is that there's a powerful woman in my life that um, either I need to let go or that needs to be let go. And so that put me on a path of inner discovery as to what this might mean for me and what I'm being called to clear. And I sat in a ceremony with Top Mario, who supported me in this, and had suggested that I bring an egg prior to him knowing what we were going to be getting into, because it's a common way that they use an egg to clear energies. And so we used the egg to clear this energy. He tapped into it as well. He said, "Yeah," he confirmed, "this is really powerful." And so he's using the egg on my body to clear the energy. And then he's having me state out loud what I wish to release. And I tapped into the Ho'oponopono prayer of I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I was saying that over and over and variations of that. And, sending that love, sending that energy back to them with love, but saying, like, this is where this ends. This is where we, you know, go our separate ways. And so this is a process that's ongoing for me. And I'm actually going to drop into ceremony with y'all today at the end of this call, as we continue to move through this, because that was what I was guided to do as I was preparing for this. And so the fact that I was moving through the house of the bats, as if that wasn't powerful enough, then again, this was the last day of our 5 ceremonies. The next morning, I woke up, and the first thing I did was go out on the balcony because the night before I had done some laundry and I wanted to see if my clothes were dry. And I'm going to go back to my photos now. So please forgive me for the graphic photo, but on the balcony of my hotel room was a dead bat. It appears to have flown into the building the night before and transitioned. And I was absolutely blown away. Like, I couldn't wait for my roommate to wake up so I could tell her like what is happening here. And I knew that this bat was there for me for a reason. And again, the House of Bats was all about um, like sacrifice and resurrection. And so immediately I thought, well, I think I meant to do a ceremony for this bat and bury this bat. But, then the logical mind comes online, is like, alert, alert, disease, like, how are you going to do this? All the hows start coming into your mind. And I sat with it and I said, I'm telling my roommate. And she's like, yeah, I think so. And then I tell Vivian, who is one of the co-founders of the Anawa organization, who was leading our trip, um, everything that had happened. And she said, yeah, that I was meant to do a ceremony and bury this bat. And so I get all my ceremonial objects that I want to bring in. I've got my agua de Florida. I've got my Palo Santo, you know, um, and so I carry the bat. And of course, in my head, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to take it, but I tell the voice that's trying to say she doesn't know, which is a very powerful voice in my life, that we don't need to know. We'll be guided to the exact perfect place. And so I'm walking around the lake where we had done the fire ceremony and the water ceremony. I'm thinking, oh, that'd be a beautiful place to do it. We've already done ceremony there, and so I end up coming across. Sorry, I keep flipping on the wrong thing. Uh, so this here is known as the ceiba tree, and this is known as a sacred Mayan tree. I didn't fully connect with this in the moment, but I thought this looked like the perfect place, the way the trunk was kind of inviting and pulling me in. And literally, that's just to the left of this tree is where I had done the water offering a few days before. And so I thought, okay, this is perfect. This is where I'm guided to bring the bat. I had been guided in the water ceremony. We were all told to collect something from nature so that we could give an offering to the water. And so I had found this really unique berry that was growing on a vine on a tree, which I loved. If you can kind of see, I don't know if I can zoom in. No. there's kind of a grid effect happening that you might be able to tell. And so to me, it reminded me of the net, back to my mind cosmology. And of course, I loved the big, bright red pop of color. There weren't really many other flowers in this region, so everything was kind of green and nature colored. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is perfect. Well, I was guided to grab some of these berries to also bury them with the bat at the sacred ceiba tree. And when I had arrived to this tree, there was a woman and her dog swimming. And so at first I thought, oh, I don't know, I don't want them to see what I'm doing. And then they went to the water. I was like, okay, great, perfect opening. And you might see there's like this twig at the very bottom of the tree. And somehow when I went back to take this photo, because I didn't have my camera at the time that I was doing the ceremony, um, the left branch had broken off, but when I had found this twig, it was like a perfect cross, which I thought that was really unique. And I don't know, I was guided to just prop it up here. And so after the ceremony, I said some light language. I had thanked it for its sacrifice, for the messages that it wanted to bring me, that it will continue to bring me. And as I was completing that, the woman and her dog were coming back from the lake, and so I told her what I had, buried this bat here, and I didn't want her dog to dig it up, so just kind of giving her a heads up. And let me go back to me here. And she said, "Well, I actually planted that tree there 20 years ago." And then that's when she had reminded me that that was the sacred ceiba tree. But not only that, that the Mayans considered the tree sacred because it connected heaven and earth. And it wasn't for a couple weeks later when I was at the ancient Mayan site in Belize that I learned it was also a tree that symbolized resurrection, which is just absolutely beautiful and poetic to me. Um, that, I was guided in these ways, not knowing, but there was a knowing. And then the way that my soul likes to play is like revealing the knowing as I go along. And so um, that was just mind blowing for me to go through that and to have that opportunity to connect with this sacred messenger again, another sacred messenger. And I think that's where I'm going to kind of wrap the story up today. It was really funny. I forgot to grab the photo for this as I was preparing for the call, but when I went to Belize to go to the other Mayan sites, I stayed at this really beautiful resort property in the jungle. And I was probably one of two guests that were staying on the property, and they maybe had 20 different houses. And they ended up putting me in the house of the Jaguar. So for those of you in my Signal group, you saw that I shared this, and I do share a lot more frequently and transparently about my life, including the powerful light language transmissions that I bring through at these sacred sites that I go to in my Signal group. So if you're interested, there's a link below this YouTube stream where you can message me to be added to that group. I feel most comfortable sharing there, and I really love the interactivity with the community and the support that I receive through that. So would love to have you there and join me. And just in case you have yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would love for you to do that as well so that you can tune in to the new content that I share, and as well as this series, which I host on the second Saturday of each month, which, again, beautiful synchronicities in the way my life works. It just so happens that next month's second Saturday is 8/8 Lionsgate, in which I will be back on Mount Shasta once again, doing a transmission for my third year in a row from the top of the mountain on that sacred portal day. So I am very excited to be able to connect with y'all again next month through this transmission. And to close, I would love to bring in the ceremony that comes in from the Proper Burial for Freedom card that I'd drawn from the Isis deck. So in this particular deck, she includes a ritual with every card and then an incantation at the end. And so I just want to take a moment to share that with you. Something felt guided for me in those that may be tuning in, that they would also benefit from this ceremony with me, to do it with me. So, no questions following that. I'm going to open the space with a little Palo Santo. I appreciate everyone that's tuning in live, sharing in the chat. For those that are watching the replay, would love to hear your comments below. What has felt alive for you, or what really felt resonant for you, or delighted you, or what came up for you, either in the light language shares or perhaps in this ceremony of release. I'm going to grab my feather that was gifted to me from the peacock Toth when I was in Colombia at my dark retreat, which I shared about in episode 1. I'm going to open the space with some light language. Ashantiki nyamaku nyaka, inviting you to get comfortable. Ushtiki nyamaka shi nyamaka, inviting you to grab anything that you wish to bring into this ceremony yourself. Ashakanti, maybe something that helps you ground. Ushtikana shiki, or something that helps you connect. Anyaku nyamaka, or simply going out into the nature, connecting there with the ground, with the earth, Mother Gaia. Ashankanti Nyamaka, thanking Mother Gaia for this opportunity to have this experience. Ashankanti Nyamaka, in all the beautiful and miraculous ways that she supports us. Ashakantinya, and the beings that come as sacred messengers. Ashakuntinya, and beautiful reminders of this miracle of life. Ashukunti Nyamaka, Shia Kantara. Yeah. I call upon Lord Osiris, who loves me unconditionally, to cast into your unconditionally loving care that which no longer belongs in the land of the living. Invitation to connect into your heart through this ceremony. Perhaps you even feel the vibration or see Osiris coming to you now with a rich green light all around him, knowing that he's bringing the promise of new life and new growth, greater connection of all of your parts. I now call forth that which is attached to my energy field and does not serve me in unconditional love. I now choose my own free will to cast into the loving care of Osiris all attachments, histories, beliefs, and beings of any influence that are not aligned with unconditional love. I release you now through all time and space with love and respect. Go in peace. You may not return to me ever. Our contracts are now dissolved, and I set you free. I set myself free. So be it. Invitation to bring in the breath to support this clearing now, with the knowing that we can call in these clearings of what does not serve us, even if it is in unconscious or subconscious form. Ashakanti nyamukunya makashi antikiakati uina kashi nyamaka. I release you now. Ashkinya maka, with love. Ashkinya mokutikia, with gratitude. Atikinya makashi, for the opportunity to have this experience. Ashakantinya maka, for me to embrace myself more fully. Ashakantinya maka, embodying my sovereignty. Ashakantinya maka, and the wholeness that is the truth of me now. Ikunya maka, and has always been. Aho, aho, aho. Osiris, master of love and peace, bring my soul the light of relief Through unconditional love and a heart that is true, I release that which should be returned to you. I surrender all not of unconditional love to your peaceful heart, pure as the dove. I am free from that which no longer lives. New life and healing now you give. To that which is due, proper burial, right, we are all free now to grow with the light. I am free to move on now, thanks to you, with unconditional love and compassion too. Shoo! Allowing some movement to come in the body if it feels good to support. If there's any cords that you wish to cut, any energetic clearing that you wish to do, perhaps even after this, you may choose to grab an egg and do a clearing on yourself as well. I think that's what I'm going to do. This was so in alignment with what was coming through with me in the ceremonies, with the egg and the clearing. And it's still very new. So there's more for me to experience. But what I can say is my parts continue to become online, and I welcome them with loving open arms. And there'll be more that I'll share in future transmissions and in my signal group as to what's unfolding for me with that. But for now, I'm going to grab Toast Feather Feather and thank Toast, thank Osiris, thank you, Bat. Thank you, Top Mario, Nanamelia, Vivian, and Oscar for this opportunity to sit in ceremonies with you. Thank you to my dragon spirits, the spirit of Palo Santo, supporting in this clearing and this creation. I welcome in so much more light. I feel so much lighter now. Hopefully you do too. So thank you again for tuning this in today. Thank you for the chat. Lisa, I see you. Jan, I see you. Di, I see you. I will share that beautiful prayer. Sure, no problem, Melita. It'd be lovely to do that. I'll share it in my Signal group, and I'll also share it in the notes below after I hit stop on this recording and update the notes. So thank you all. I would love to know how this landed for you. And I look forward to next month. Lionsgate. Got to pick up my RV and do the RV things before I head over. And calling in all the grace and ease for that. And just so much gratitude for the ability to live this life and to share it with you. Thanks for tuning.